Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining. My name's Stephen Christou. I'm the Marketing Director at SentiSum, and it's a pleasure to be able to put on this webinar for you today. We wanted to share, for those that have joined in and also registered as well, we'll be sharing 5 key takeaways in a single document following on from this webinar, so something to look forward to. With that said, I'd like to hand over to SentiSum's founder, Sharad Khandelwal, to introduce himself and our guest for today.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, guys. I'm Sharad, founder and CEO of SentiSum. But this session is not about SentiSum. I'm pleased to have Steve Burt with us, who is the Senior Director of Global Customer Experience at JustPark. And Steve is going to talk about, I guess, what every CX leader dreams of, which is how to move from a culture of constantly reacting to CX issues to actually predicting and preventing them. I guess even what is more interesting is that what Steve has done is at a place where you would not expect. It's as a parking app. It's a global parking app. Steve, do you mind briefly introducing JustPark to our listeners?
Absolutely. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to be here. So JustPark, a lot of people would come into contact with JustPark as maybe an app to pay for parking. We have about 14 million drivers that are registered on our platform that use JustPark. But actually, it's a little bit more than just that app to pay for parking. On our platform, drivers can also book spaces in advance. And that's where we're often describe ourselves as the Airbnb of parking. We work with commercial car parks and premises with underused spaces. But we also include private driveways in that as well. So getting drivers access to places they simply couldn't book anywhere else. And that community of space owners, as we call them, is about 45,000 across the UK, giving us access to about 60,000 spaces, often near large UK venues and stadiums that you really couldn't park there any other way. And then, last year we merged with Park Hub in the US, whose tech powers lots of major venues across the US. And now we're one JustPark, combining consumer insight with enterprise precision to make parking simpler and smarter for everyone.
Thanks, Steve. And I personally love JustPark, especially when I'm heading to central London. It just makes it so easy. Pre-book the parking. That's it.
Yeah.
Cool. But before we get into the serious CX stuff, maybe let's start with a few quick warm-ups so that our audience get to know you better, Steve. First one is an interesting one. Steve, why are you known as the most expensive support agent? What happened during the US launch?
This is something that I've done throughout my career. I remember reading a thing on how Jeff Bezos and the C-suite at Amazon would go down to the customer support center once a week and take calls from customers to really get a handle on what their customers were saying, what their pain points were. And rather than letting that come through 3 or 4 different layers, it was really nice to sort of see that happening directly. And so I took a leaf out of their book. So I still do it now. And it's one of those things where I think even a couple of days ago, I will still dive into the odd support ticket just to really keep my finger on the pulse, make sure we know exactly what our drivers are saying. So that when you get to things like exec level meetings where people are wanting to know, what do customers think about this? What do customers think about that? What are our pain points? When I'm talking, I'm not just talking from a position of some data that I've analyzed or had someone analyze for me. I'm doing some of that, but I'm also getting straight from the mouth of the customer. I'm getting that absolute cold, hard feedback.
So you're rounding yourself into all the parking related feedback tickets. How many parking tickets did you personally get this year?
Parking 0. I'm a very I respect the law. My wife, however, 1.
Okay. And is it, Steve, true that once you did stand-up comedy?
Yeah, and I still do it from time to time. I did it for a good number of years. Did about 100 or so stand-up gigs. Only like 5 minutes here and there, but it's made presenting and doing parking related webinars a little bit easier.
Got it. Coming back to CX, what's the most overrated CX metric for you?
I think when I think about the most like CX metrics, look, all of them can be measured in a useful way, as
Right.
long as it's having some sort of impact and some sort of insight for your business. But I've always been not a big fan of average handle time. It's
Right.
something that a lot of call centers and contact centers look at. And if you're doing something that's like, you're trying to keep everyone to under 5 minutes or something like that, you run the risk of not solving enough driver problems. So keep an eye on it. You don't want too many long calls, but it shouldn't be something that you're actively sort of trying to damp down.
Got it. So what's that one thing which you will ban from every CX dashboard?
I think that probably would be that one. Just looking at just that moment of looking at just that one point of just trying to reduce that time that you're on the phone to the customer. It is a really important metric for a lot of companies, and I understand that. And it is one that you should keep an eye on, I think. But average handle time is probably one of those ones where I'm not as worried about it, as long as we can prove that we're solving customer problems.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Steve. Now, talking about how you took JustPark from being very reactive in customer experience to being proactive, I guess if we rewind a little bit, not too long ago, CX at JustPark was a bit of a firefight, like a lot of organizations. I guess my question here is, what did disruption look like before you had this kind of SentiSum's early warning in place?
Yeah, I think the way to describe it is that it used to just sort of come out of nowhere. Suddenly, you'd be at work one day and suddenly you'd see spikes in complaints. Our outbound contact or our outsourced contact center would be then letting us know about a big spike in phone calls. This is coming in, and it always felt like we were just sort of reacting and chasing our tail. And the worst part of that is we'd be hearing problems after they'd already hurt someone's experience. Okay. And as a customer experience person, that's really that's like the worst case scenario. We want to be on the front foot, not on the back foot. So in short, I guess drivers were the ones telling us when something was broken. But the worst thing as well is that only when it hit enough volume for it to be noticeable. So it would have to be large amounts of volume, large volumes of customer journeys broken. Then it would come on our radar, and then we'd jump in, and of course we would fix it as quickly as possible. But the frustration was really just how surprised we were and how many drivers we burned before it got visible enough for us to step in and make a decision to sort of fix that. So I think, we couldn't. I'm a big fan of learning by failure, but there's certain amounts of failure that you don't want to be learning by all the time. You want to be burning driver after driver, hurting experiences. And we've already learned that, I know it's just parking, but actually what drivers are doing after they've parked is something that's really important to them. So we're kind of impacting their day. So how can we get out the way as quickly as possible? Well, one thing is learning about what is failing before it affects too many drivers.
Amazing. And that's what I hear from so many CX leaders. My question here would be, how did that make you feel as a CX leader when you're talking about burning drivers and not knowing things in a timely manner? How did you feel like as a CX leader?
Those are the sorts of things that keep me up at night. And again, I know it doesn't sound like, as a parking app, that's not the normal sort of sentiment that one might find. But I think right from the CEO to our exec team, with me here as well, it is something that we're really passionate about, is the customer journey. And it's actually something we're really trying to get out into the world at large, really, into the public consciousness, is that actually we really do care about those journeys. Right. When we see something going wrong, it does. Yeah, these sorts of things do keep me up at night. I do look at an app review on my phone before I go to bed, and I'll think about that and think, how can we fix that the next day? Yeah.
See, you spoke about how, like Jeff Bezos, you would also drown yourself in tickets and reviews. Is there any specific or a particular customer message you will never forget, for good or maybe for bad?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when we get reviews especially on Trustpilot, Trustpilot as well. There are some that are focused around like I mentioned just now, it's not about the parking, it's about what the customer's doing after that. So when we get things right, it's great to read reviews about where someone was going to a hospital visit for a parent who wasn't feeling very well or wasn't very well. And it was really great to hear that actually they were really stressed about that, about that visit. But actually that was the one thing they didn't have to worry about because they had reserved their parking. They got there, it took all the stress out of that. What was quite a horrible moment for them. And that sort of really sticks with us just as well as it does when we see people have a great time at going to the theatre or going to see a show or concerts at the O2, these sorts of things.
Yeah,
that really sticks with us is when we actually play a part in that person's day or evening.
Yeah, got it. Not many people would kind of think that JustPark will be so empathetic to drivers. That's amazing. And just kind of building onto this, Steve, what was the moment when you felt and said, I had enough and I can't run CX like this anymore? Was any specific incident or maybe gradual realization that you said, enough is enough?
I think a couple of things. One is that
Mhm.
the amount of feedback we're sitting on. We have Trustpilot reviews, listing reviews, which is reviews that people make on our own platform. We have NPS, and also we have the support tickets that we have every month. But there's just no way that you can look and read and look at all those, read all of those, decide on a strategy, bring all that together. It was really slow to sort of get any feedback together. So I think just realizing how much we had, and on the other side of things was just looking at, we were relying on agents really when they're looking at tickets and solving problems. We're looking at them to categorize those tickets correctly so that they can say what the issue is about, so that then we running the business can look at what each car park and what each driver has an issue with. But obviously when things get really busy, it's easy to miscategorize those support tickets. And you know, my opinion was like, well, I'd rather they be focused on helping drivers with their problems rather than worry about have I picked the perfect third or fourth subcategory so that we can have that filed correctly. So I think, yeah, there were moments that I suspected the journey was breaking, but I couldn't prove it. I just needed the data to tell the story.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. And I hear this so often from CX leaders because if you are running the CX function, you know most of the time what are the problems. Where I think every CX leader struggle is to have the data backing any specific investment or project saying this should be our top priority, let's do it. Again, I remember also you mentioned to me that at JustPark, you have never been short of feedback, but it's insights you were always lacking. So that's such a great quote.
Yeah, I think we have something like 170,000 Trustpilot reviews. So just even just thinking about that, you know, just even that on its own is ridiculous. So on top of that, all the tens of thousands of other data points. So yeah, really just getting those trends and finding some way of bringing all that together and then using that to prove, I guess, or disprove my gut instinct on things.
Yeah, got it. And Steve, once you had this realization that you want to now solve this and you know that how this could be solved, how did you rally your leadership and other teams behind your new initiative and approach?
Yeah, I think part of that is that obviously, look, it's on me or indeed other CX leaders. You have to use influencing skills in order to sort of like be able to convince exec teams or C-suite execs to invest in a tool that can help one do that. But I think really it's a case of looking at, well, how else are we going to be able to improve our product to a point where it's no longer causing pain points in the journey? And really all you're doing is demonstrating that actually by reducing pain points and friction in your customer journey, you're actually creating more of an opportunity to increase checkout conversion or reduce refund rates or increase retention or increase how often someone makes a booking with your platform. All of those things actually are financial and fiscal rewards of investing in a tool that can help tell you where your pain points are. So that's the first point. Obviously you need an exec team that can take that on board. So I think at JustPark, we're lucky to have a C-suite and especially a COO who is incredibly passionate about two things: customer experience and data. And I think it's fair to say that SentiSum sits right at the intersection of both of those.
Yeah, and that's so interesting, Steve, because uh, I think this is where everyone here would agree that it's never about tech. It always comes down to company culture, and I think it speaks so much about just Park's culture. And obviously, we are fortunate to be working with you all. Culture plays such a key role. Tech alone can never solve a problem. You can have the best product, but if no one is behind the product or tech, what are you going to do with the tech?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I remember when kind of you started this initiative and we were kind of running the initial pilot. You almost ran like a SentiSum roadshow actually inside JustPark. I found it so interesting, and I think that could be very valuable to other CX leaders how to evangelize what they believe in. Do you want to share more details about it?
Sure. I think there's a couple of things I did. One was recommended by our CEO at the time, Anthony, which was create a video and really sell the product to the exec team. And that I think was a really revolutionary moment, because that allowed us to time to that I wouldn't really necessarily get in the day, to maybe have a meeting and get all the exec team together in one place. They were able to watch the video at their own time and actually engage with the video. And I got a lot of good feedback about that video from the C-suite team, because they really understood, and I helped to explain, I guess, they really understood what it meant and what the product was and what it could do. And then the other thing was then taking SentiSum around to all those product leaders. So taking that vertical of the C-suite and then their senior managers and going through it, having an hour in the calendars to basically just take them through the whole thing, showing them the power of it, and relating everything back to that particular part. So going to product and talking about the product pain points, going to marketing and talking about what language customers are using. All of that was really, really helpful for us getting, I think, overall adoption. We're still not quite there, I think, on a lot of it. And I think if I had to do this again and take, go back and repeat this, that's the one thing I would do. So I'd probably do that internal roadshow. I would have done that within the first few weeks. I think that has made a big difference.
Yeah, that's so valuable. Now let's talk about the impact this created after you implemented this, especially on consumer trust. In your case, private trust or retention. Any impact you can talk about?
Yeah, so I think for us, always like things like retention is always a little bit tricky to measure at JustPark, because we can have one user can use us once a year and absolutely love it, because they're only using it for event parking, whereas others might use us 4 or 5 times a week because they're consumers. But one thing I think we can see is that with SentiSum, we are able to look at what do we need to build. And I think I remember going over this with yourself and other members of SentiSum, which is trying to get everyone around this view of how do we fix driver problems. And that's the basis of all of this is, and if I may, I would even throw space owners in that as well. How do we fix driver and space owner problems? Because if you fix those problems, and as a business, you're focused on fixing those problems and making their journeys go better, you will reap the rewards in terms of retention and repeat bookings.
Got it. We're taking note of everything you're saying, because these are all just kind of gold nuggets for our audience. Steve, if I'm not wrong, our audience can also ask their question. They can type in their questions, right?
Yeah, Steve, we've actually got one. We've got one question here. So I wonder if you could share a little bit around the biggest operational change that SentiSum enabled you to achieve. So would it be maybe save time, team structure, or something different?
Yeah, the biggest one, and it's one we're still working on, but the biggest one that I think will come out of this is the amount of time that we as a business spend on, and I'm sure a lot of business do this, of what should we do next? It's that whole question of, in terms of your product, in terms of your roadmap for your business, what should we do next? And really what we're able to say is, well, actually, here's a bunch of stuff we should absolutely do next, because these are the ones that are causing the friction and the most pain points. So yeah, I think that's one thing that we will get out of this. And instead of having 5, 6, 7 meetings trying to decide what those things are, you can really condense those down into 2 to 3 meetings. So you're already saving tons of time and resource just by reducing that meeting number down. And then, of course, what you're coming out of that is not a gamble of what might work. It's stuff that your pain points that you're actually fixing.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, prioritization is such a big headache for every department in every company. Where should you invest next? You always have hundreds of priorities. What should you pick up next? Another question, Steve, is that right now we are living in a world where like everyone just talks about AI, AI, AI. It has become so noisy, right? So how did you navigate that noise to take AI from not just kind of being a kind of fashion statement to something more meaningful? And again, how did you bring your other colleagues and teams behind you? Said like, no, actually, this AI use case will really have a proper ROI.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. And as it just, I'm sure as we all do at the moment, whenever I get a new LinkedIn request for a contact, or invariably there's something .ai it's related to, right? It's just it's a really big thing at the moment, as we all know. For me, I never invest in tools just for the sake of investing tools. I don't see this as being a vanity project. Just to be able to say, yes, we've got AI inside of JustPark. It's not about that. It's about meaningful contribution to your business roadmap and your product roadmap, and also to your customer experience. There's a couple of things, I guess. One is with SentiSum, obviously, it's having that AI constantly listening, as we always say here at JustPark, constantly listening to all of the feedback and almost like ready to help us out on any moment, especially on the commercial side of things. Is our commercial team have really adopted SentiSum very quickly, and what they like to have it for is just like showing their clients, commercial car parks, things like that, the source of feedback that we're getting from those commercial car parks and how well JustPark does at those locations. So there's that, but yeah, it's always in the background, sort of, with things like anomaly warnings, when if there was ever an issue that sort of spikes above a certain level, we get to hear about it. So those are all sort of meaningful, real world AI solutions. And the other thing was we have AI in our CRM to help drivers self-serve where it makes sense. And that was a really big deal for me when I first started at JustPark. I think we had kind of over digitized things. So we had like a chatbot was the main route to service customers. But if you're working for a company that is providing a car parking solution, whether that's reservations or digital payments, quite often your customer will be in a vehicle. So having a chatbot is really not that helpful.
Exactly.
So yeah, building in AI into sort of being able to surface other solutions for them to help them self-serve was a way that it means that the driver gets the problem solved. If they're submitting a ticket, they get an answer gets suggested to them. Does this solve their problem? And if it doesn't, then we get them to an agent as soon as we can. We're no problem with connecting drivers to humans, but we always like to offer them, does this solve your problem first? And yeah, a large percentage of the time, that's the case.
Absolutely. I would absolutely hate it if I'm standing at a parking barrier and I'm trying to deal with a chatbot in an underground parking.
Yeah, it's a big change we made. I think something like 20 plus clicks down the chatbot
Right.
until you got hold of our phone number. And I made that change within weeks of starting at JustPark because it just seemed to be silly to me. That's not to say that you shouldn't do that for other aspects of customer support and customer experience. I think you have to look at where your customer is. If your customer, if you're working for a company where it's a digital journey overall, fine, no problem in doing that. But I think where you've got to look where your customer is and meet them where they're at. So if your customer is likely to be in a vehicle, don't give them a 20-click chatbot.
Yeah, agree. And all of these changes, how did they shape, I guess, your service design and event management playbooks? Events are big for JustPark, especially in the US.
Yeah, I do like those launch moments. So like last year when we were launching, we've been B2B in the US obviously since Park Hub's inception, but when we merged with Park Hub and we became JustPark US, we really were sort of launching into the B2C world for the first time over there. And what I always like to do is at the start of a launch, when it comes to support, I keep the funnel really wide and I let everything to the support team so that we can see what people are asking. There's a lower, because it's quite new into the launch phase at that point, you're unlikely to sort of drown the team in volume, but it gives you a chance to see what people are asking. And that's when I'm also, I might take a couple of phone calls at that time and look at a few tickets as well myself. And you're kind of deciding what do people think is urgent, what's urgent and what's important and what's urgent and important. And then you can kind of build around that. Once you've got that funnel open and you kind of see what everyone is requesting, you get a good sense then of being able to work out, okay, what can I help them with by self-serve? Where can I help them with in terms of my IVR menus that's on, if I have a phone with an IVR menu, where can I help direct them? And what do I just need to get in front of a human as soon as possible? So I think all of that in terms of that launch phase is really important.
Yeah, I think we have a very interesting question here, Steve. That JustPark is the official partner for FIFA World Cup, I guess next year in the US. What would be the biggest CX challenge at such a large scale event?
Yeah, I think it's going to, there'll be a few challenges around the users getting used to using parking passes, but actually in the States, it should be fine. We already have a very large parking pass solution for lots of large venues in the US. So we're not anticipating there to be any large friction points at all with this. It's more just about making sure that we've got things in place and our service design is correct, which we know will already be in place.
Got it. Steve, one habit you would recommend to other CX leaders who want to be proactive like yourself in JustPark?
I think blocking time out each week to review what your customers are actually saying. I've spoken about it a few times over the last half an hour or so, but I think as a CX leader, don't ever be afraid of getting close to the customer again. Dive into a few calls, dive into a few chats, dive into a few support tickets. You will learn more, your spot patterns earlier, your instinct sharper. You will know as a CX leader that where to meet your customers. You'll learn so much more about your customers just by carving out that time to review what customers are actually saying to you.
And how often do you do this, Steve?
I normally do it once a week, but as I said, I think even my most recent time was just the other evening with a couple of people from the O2 who needed some help booking. And it was really interesting just to sort of just dive in and just check their understanding of JustPark. It's something I do, like I said, about once a week. But if once a month is all you can do, then that's absolutely fine. But I just, don't let that layer of people that report into you dilute that really important customer feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is genuinely what you would call true voice of your customer, right? It's not in the once in a month or once in a quarter surveys you run. It's the continuous reviews, social support tickets. That's the true voice of customer. And do you also take these kind of feedback or tickets to your leadership, and when you're reading yourself, you come across something interesting, you take these to your CEO or CEO or other leaders in the business?
Yeah, when you come to, absolutely. When you come to, certainly when you're in the room and you're thinking, I'm representing the voice of the customer, you can do so with a degree of confidence because you already know what customers are saying. And absolutely, there are times where you take things verbatim and you will put it into your monthly reporting. This is what customers are saying about this one particular thing. And again, it just gives you that real world insight of what drivers are saying, what your customers are saying about you. It's invaluable to really know, and like I said, I mentioned that phrase, finger on the pulse of all those customers that you have, just being able to take that to those meetings and know when I'm representing the voice of the customer, I genuinely am, because I know what the voice of the customer is. I've spoken to them personally.
Yeah, agree. We are right on time, but we have one interesting question. So we'll take that question and then we'll wrap it up. Is that JustPark obviously works with a lot of partners, especially kind of private parkings, boroughs, etc. So the question here is, has SentiSum changed the way you optimize your relationship with partners or boroughs? And yeah.
Yeah, I think I spoke about it back earlier about one of the biggest adopters of SentiSum usage in JustPark is actually the commercial team. And one wouldn't have thought that. You'd have think it'd be obviously CXs or maybe product, but I think whilst we use it heavily, I think these guys are using it on a real day-to-day basis. They're using it for quarterly meetings. They're using it for quarterly business reviews. And they were kind of using it as like here's the whole inventory that you have with JustPark. Here's how it's being utilized. This is what customers are saying. Some of that feedback can be about the car park operations specifically, which isn't something that we manage. It could be about the location. And that feedback is not feedback they're able to get elsewhere as well. So those commercial partners really appreciate that piece. And then also on the anomaly warning side of things, just letting us know if there are any issues with the car park, such as if there's a barrier that isn't working, if there's a shutter that's not working. It's really hard to get that feedback, and that can come through both on the CX side and also the commercial side, so they can reach out to those commercial partners and let them know, because it's not just JustPark drivers who will be parking at those premises. There'll be other organic drivers who are using it as well. So it's really important, and it's something that we've seen the clients really appreciate.
Yeah, that's interesting, because then it's also helping your partners. As you said, not every driver may be a JustPark customer. That's good to know. Cool. Time to wrap this up. It's just 4:30 and we can see it's already getting dark in London. The dark and gloomy days are back. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing all these insights with us and with our audience. And thank you, everyone who joined this webinar.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. Bye-bye.